There is news that supposedly in 2024 there will be a Power Rangers series that will be aimed at an adult audience. Although there are many projects being developed right now for this franchise, I believe that this project of a series aimed at adults would be the most successful of all. This is because the franchise has been around for 30 years, and all those fans who started watching Power Rangers in its beginnings, today are adults looking for a different formula but still have their lifelong heroes. We have seen some projects on YouTube about Power Rangers stories with an adult approach, and although the public has liked what they have seen, I don't know if this is what the fans are looking for. We should mention some of the things that a Power Rangers series with adult-oriented content should have, and then we will know if this can be possible. Let's remember that Power Rangers being a franchise for a young audience, sometimes that has some good things that benefit the story, and we don't realize it. For example, one of these things is that the Rangers are usually good-hearted people, and we can put all our trust in that hero. Instead, in a more adult-focused story, we would have to accept that this is going to change so that the story is not predictable, and then we might have the imbalance of mistrust. We won't know if our hero is actually completely good, or maybe he's faking it and at the last second, he's a backstabber. These are things that happen in any story for adults, as they are everyday themes of life such as revenge, mistrust, and betrayal. Perhaps, many are thinking that having a series for adults is only going to change some things like adding blood, more violence, and death. The reality is that these are just superficial things that can happen, but if they don't happen, even so, the story can still be for adults, since what matters is the complexity of the story. When talking about making a Power Rangers series aimed at adults, then we must mention several things that must happen for it to actually be a story for adults and not for the whole family. First, it should be clear that the series should not be completely for adults only, since that would be R-rated, and there are many projects that are for ages 14 plus and any adult can enjoy it. The problem we have with Power Rangers is that, although they say it is for the whole family, the reality is that the story is aimed at a very young audience. We could even say that it is completely made for children under 7 years old. This means that it would be enough to change several things to be liked by adults, even though it may no longer be suitable for children. The first thing we should mention that has to change is the story, since now they only make simple stories that anyone can understand. The story should be complex and have deep themes so that the viewer must think to understand what is going on. These stories can have everyday issues such as betrayal, grief, depression, and illness. With complex stories, then they would have to change the format that they have been doing for so many years, that format of continuing to try to destroy the Rangers, fight with the monster, in the end they destroy it, and in the next episode the same thing happens again. With a different format, many things would start to change because they would have the opportunity to create more complete stories and give a better purpose to the villains. Speaking of the villains, this is one of the biggest problems we have in Power Rangers, as most of them have no real purpose in trying to destroy the Rangers. Many of the villains are just based on past wars, revenge, and conquering the Earth. If they start creating new stories for adults, then these villains should have more complex purposes to start attacking the Power Rangers. Besides giving them better purposes, They could also give them a bit more of a victory, that the Rangers would find themselves in very difficult situations to overcome. They might even lose some battles. There are superhero movies that are very good, only because the villain won some battles and came close to winning the whole war. We know that for the young audience to see their heroes winning all the time is something they like a lot, but for adults this becomes boring. Something very good that the Dino Fury series had is that the final villain was very difficult to stop, and besides Lord Zed was very powerful and the Rangers could not destroy him. When a story has a villain that is easy to stop, then the story becomes boring, since the thing that keeps us very attentive to the television is that tension created by seeing your hero in a difficult situation and that he may lose his life. All of these are things they can use to start creating a series aimed at adults, and although it may not have to be R-rated, at least the story can be liked by older viewers. Unfortunately, many have focused on other themes and situations thinking that this can create a series for adults, but the reality is that it would simply change to be a cruder series, and that would be it. One of the main things they need to change is to leave out the silly comedy, as it takes away from the seriousness of the series, and I really don't think any adult would like the sad comedy that is on Power Rangers right now. There are a lot of ridiculous characters looking to be that comedic moment in each episode, but the reality is that they are just padding in order to fill the time of each episode. If the producers would focus on presenting the whole story without having to resort to those ridiculous filler scenes, then we would have an action-packed, drama-filled series with important themes to watch. We know it's not the same, but if we compare the stories of the comics, then we will realize that this is what they could present in any Power Rangers series for adults. Imagine if they could create a 10-episode series based on the Shattered Grid saga, and at the end have a real legendary battle with all the Rangers from all dimensions to destroy Lord Draken. This would be a real story that would trap any adult at home to watch this series from beginning to end in the same day. Another story they can create is that of the Death Ranger, a story that has themes such as betrayal, grief, depression, death, and the end of the world. All of these themes are presented in a great story with one of the most impressive villains we've ever seen that really wouldn't be that hard to create on television. All these are things that have a big difference in budget, because in comics we can create anything, and it would have exactly the same cost since we only have to draw it. On the other hand, on television, if there are 20 different scenarios in the story, then that would be a lot of money, and this could be the reason for not doing this type of stories. Even so, I think these comics can serve as an example to start creating better stories for a more adult audience without losing the essence of what the franchise is. If you would like to see stories for adults, like this video and subscribe for a change in Power Rangers.